In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to organize quantitative data. Remember that quantitative data is a variable that is numerical. So for example, a really easy example of quantitative data would be your grades in a class, because you get numerical grades when you get papers handed back. I guess there might be some teachers who do letter grades, which in that case that will be qualitative, but we'll just, for the sake of this lesson, we can use numerical grades. Quantitative data can be grouped into classes, categories, or bins to make the data more understandable. And just some little rules to help you as you create these bins are, first one is a sensible class size is 5 to 20. 10 is a really good one. All classes should be the same size with no overlap, and grouping data is reasonable when data sets are very large. So if you have like a data set of 1,000 observations, you might want to bin some of these observations to make it a little bit easier to make a chart of. An example of these bins, when it says there's no overlap, we can use the grades, using the grades example, numerical grades. If you had if the lowest grade was a 50, then you could start at 50 to 59. And then your next bin would be 60 to 69, 70 to 79, 80 to 89, 90 to 99, and so on. So they're all the exact same size, and there is no overlap. There's no part where they share anything in common. So that's kind of an example of it. We won't do a lot of binning in this class, but in the future, if you're dealing with large data sets, that might be helpful. In some cases, a single value class makes sense. So for example, if you're dealing with anything discrete or small data sets that are discrete, and an example I mentioned in a previous video was number of TVs in a household. You're probably going to have like 1, 2, 3, 4. There might be an outlier of more than 4 TVs in a house. That's a lot of TVs, but that would be an example, a discrete variable where it wouldn't really make sense to do bins. And then the types of charts that we use to display quantitative data are histograms, dot plots, and stem and leaf diagrams. Histograms are pretty easy to do, especially if you have a TI-84 or TI Inspire. Dot plots are a little trickier. You actually can't do them on the TI-84s. You can do them on the TI Inspires. There's some videos on YouTube as to how to do that if you have a TI Inspire. I have a TI Inspire. It's really nice, really useful, so pretty, love it. But that's a separate video in itself. Another thing that I have not mentioned before is called Fathom. Fathom statistical software is a very inexpensive software that you can have on your PC. Be careful if you have an Apple, especially a newer version of an Apple computer. Sometimes Fathom is not compatible, so be careful with that. But even if you do download it, it's only $6 a year. So you pay $6 for the entire year. After the year, it expires, and then it asks you if you want to buy it again. So it's not an automatic $6 every year. You could just get 1 year, use it for the class, and then never see it again. But I really love the software. It's so easy to use, and it's really inexpensive. So if you don't have a TI Inspire and you want to do a dot plot using software, Fathom is great. I have not found out how to do it. I don't think it's possible to do it in Microsoft or Google that I'm aware of. I've looked and I haven't found it. And then stem and leaf diagrams, you can do these in Excel. It's a little time consuming. They're pretty easy to do by hand, but it can be done in Excel. So I have an example down here of a histogram, and I have these steps as to how to get a histogram. A histogram is essentially a bar chart, but there's no space between the bars. If there is space between the bars, it's because there's a gap in the data. I think this one it needs to be squished together. Nope, there is a gap in the data. There's no twos, so that's why. So you can see that the bars are touching. That's a histogram. And histograms can be done in PowerPoint really easily. I don't have PowerPoint on my iPad. I do on my computer, but they're really easy to do in PowerPoint. I would not necessarily recommend it in Excel or Sheets. Google Sheets will tell you that it's a histogram. If you are on the iPad and you try to do a histogram in Google Sheets, it won't let you adjust the scale on the x-axis, so it's not truly a histogram. But I would imagine on the computer, you have more options and you can adjust the scale and scrunch it closer together so that it forces it to be a histogram, basically, long story short. But if you have a handheld calculator already, then it's pretty easy to do in the calculator. I have the steps over here on the right. You're going to have to input your data. And then actually, I'll just walk you through this. Whoops, let me drag this up. That's not what I wanted. There we go. I wanted split screen. I'm going to go to Stat, Edit. I'm going to go in my L1. I already have data. I'm going to go up there, clear it, go down. I'm going to input my data, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 1, 3, 4. Whoops. After you've input your data into L1, you want to double check and make sure that your data was input correctly. So I have 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 1, 3, 4, 3, 1. Okay, I'm good. And then I'm going to go to second mode, which is like quit. I'm getting out of that screen. And then I want to go into stat plot. Stat plot, I'm going to do second y equals. Mine's going to look a little bit different than yours if you have a handheld calculator. But basically, you're going to be choosing, there's little icons, or you're going to be choosing the one that looks like a histogram. So mine, I'm going to tap on this. I'm going to scroll. Those are box plots. There's my histogram. My list is in L1. So if you put yours in L2, you can adjust that. And then I can change my color if I want to. I don't really care. Hit done. And then on yours, you should be able to do zoom 9. And that should zoom in on the data that you want. This calculator is just a free app. It's the Graph Calc 83. So it's a little bit different. It does the same thing though. So we're good to go. If I go to y equals, I want to make sure that my y equals are cleared out. If they're not cleared out, it's going to show up on the graph. And then I'm going to hit graph just to see where it is. Hey, that turned out really nice. Sometimes I was surprised because sometimes you have to go in and change the window. If your histogram is not actually a histogram, if it's all spread out like a bar chart, then you're going to have to go change your window and change your scale. So if I go look at the window, second graph, you can see that my X scale is 1, which is where I want it to be because I'm doing single class variables by ones. And so that's why when I hit graph, it turned out so beautifully. If I had done it in purple, it would have been even more beautiful. But there's your histogram, super simple, really easy to do on a handheld calculator. Also can be done using software. If you have Fathom, if you download Fathom statistical software, you can do it on Fathom also, which I might show you in a second, depending. And then here it is in Fathom. Basically in Fathom, you input your data, and then you drag down graph. You literally just drag it down from the toolbar and then select histogram. And that's it. So easy. Love it. Dot plots are, like I said, a little bit harder to do. If you have Fathom, same thing. You input your data into Fathom, drag down graph, select dot plot, and that's it. I will say if you don't have Fathom, or a TI Inspire, dot plots are really easy to do by hand. Literally, you just have your x-axis, your horizontal axis, you have your numerical values that are in your data set, and then you're literally just putting a dot every time you see a 1, a 3, a 4, a 1, so each dot represents an observation. So there are 2 observations of 1. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 threes, and then 3 fours. And we could verify that by looking at the data 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's why there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots. So that's how you do it by hand. Really easy. If you don't have Fathom or TI Inspire, don't worry about going and buying them. You can do it by hand for free. So here's the steps if you do have a TI Inspire. Again, it is a little involved, but there's lots of videos on that in YouTube, so you can go look that up if you need to, or you can email me and I can help you because I have an Inspire. A stem and leaf plot is the last one we're going to look at. Has the, let's see, what most number as the leaf and the rest as the stem. The right, had to look at the wording of that. Most number as the leaf and the rest as the stem. So you would just really literally just break off that last piece, and that's your leaf, and the rest is your stem. So 5 is your leaf. In this example below, we're going to do a stem and leaf plot or chart, plot, and then do a dot plot based on your stem and leaf. And I want you to pause it, try it, and come back. If you're having trouble getting started, you're basically going to set up a T-chart. Whoa, sorry about that. I'm going to make this one a little bit longer because it might extend out. And basically what you're going to do here, this is your stem, this is your leaf. If you look at the data, we have 30s, 40s, 20s, 60s. Okay, and they're 2-digit numbers. So we have 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s as your stem. And then your leaves are going to be in order. And so you're going to look at all the 20s. I'll get you started. I think there's only 2. And so we have a 20 and a 21. And then you'll look at all the 30s, you'll put them in order, line them out, space them evenly, and then all the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So now go ahead and try it. So your stem and leaf chart should look like this. And while the numbers don't specifically line up, they should be evenly spaced and they should be in order. If a number repeats, you do write it as many times as it repeats. So you can see in the 50s, we had 55 5 times. So this is kind of cool because if you turn your head sideways, you can kind of see the shape of the data, which we'll talk about next. And you can also see where the majority of the data is. So the majority of our data is in the 40s. And then you can use this to draw a dot plot. So go ahead and pause it and draw a dot plot and then come back. Mm. So it should look like this. I forgot to pause the video, so you got to see me do it. Um, so it should look like this. Mine's a little bit wonky around here, but it's just a sketch of a dot plot. You can see I went by twos. I was able to fit all the data on one number line, and then you can see where, you know, the largest stacks are. And so we have 555s there. So that's all I have for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd be happy to help.